Well, I'm excited about our next guest because I listen to Full Ride every single day, and you guys hear me talking about it. It's the time of day, and it's a great show, by the way. Chris Childers is the host, and we're going to hear from Chris in a moment. Rick Neuheisel, the coach, is on with him, and Rick knows everybody in college football. I think he knows every single person, by the way. And Allie Gehring is the producer, and she's great, too, and has a segment on the show. And we need to get Allie actually on our show. We need a little female touch here as we get into football season. But nevertheless, the show pony, Chris Childers, joins us now. And I love the guy because he's just a guy. He's a fan, and he brings that perspective to the show every day. Chris, great to see you, my friend. How you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be here. Just the guy, indeed. And I enjoy being just the guy in this world of athletes and coaches, and it's kind of surreal every day. But yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you.
You know, it was last year at the SEC Championship at Fanfare, and I'm walking by with my wife, and you're doing your interviews with the legends of the game up on a stage. And I looked at it, I said, I know that guy's voice. I said, where have I heard that guy's voice? And we walked back, and I said, that's Chris Childers. And she was like, that's the guy we have to listen to when you're in the car? I'm like, yes, that's the guy. Yep. So, and it was great to meet you in person finally. And for our listeners and people watching, you're just like you are on the radio in person.
I try. I mean, it's our radio show is kind of fun because we don't have to be stiff. We don't have to be
right.
I mean, I guess I'm as wacky and wonky in real life. I'm a little introverted though in real life, which is weird. But I guess when I'm with people that I'm comfortable with and all that, I act like the show pony. But what's so weird about radio? I said this to Rick yesterday. We were talking about Deshaun Foster and what happened at Big Ten Media Days and how he froze on stage, and I said I totally relate with that because I am terrified of public speaking. I really am. Like being in front of a group of people. I had this incident happen to me last year, and I've done plenty of touchdown clubs and stuff like that, but for whatever reason, and this group I've spoken to a couple times in the past, for whatever reason this time my body was like, no, we don't like this, and I was just sweating. It was a couple weeks before you saw me in Atlanta.
Right.
Like it was dripping off my forehead. It was awful. So I get it, but yet I do a radio show every day that's broadcast to thousands of people. The weird thing is, though, is you're looking at me right now. This is where I do my radio show. So I'm sitting in my home. I can look outside and see my car and see my mailbox and see my neighbors and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's almost this weird mental Jedi mind trick that I'm doing a show, but it's just like it's me and Rick talking to each other and just coincidentally people are listening to it. You know, it's almost like this weird thing, but so I can be authentic, I can be myself. I think if I like really thought about people listening, I might be more stiff and more like, you know, Johnny Broadcaster. But yeah, it's what we do is fun, so it allows me to kind of, you know, be a little bit more authentic.
Well, you are not Johnny Broadcaster, that's for sure. And so oftentimes you'll say things kind of outrageous. I mean, just irreverent, and it really throws Rick a curveball. You know, which I really enjoy because I'm like, well, what's Coach going to come back with now?
Yeah,
and that's kind of the cool part of the show, right?
Yeah, so it's pretty funny, and we have our commercial breaks. If you could air those,
I bet.
Those are even better than what goes on the air. There's this thing I like to do when, you know, I'll drink something carbonated from time to time during the commercial break, whether it's a soda or a, you know, sparkling water, whatever, seltzer water, whatever it is. Maybe sometimes like a energy drink or something, depending if I'm tired. But, you know, oftentimes, like anybody else, when I drink a carbonated beverage, I have to belch. So he is very prim and proper. He's very country club. He spends pretty much every single day of his life in a country club, whether it's the ones he belongs to at Bel Air or Phoenix or some other one. So and I was just at his sister's house, Deborah, who lives in Nashville a couple weeks ago. She's an awesome person, but lives in this stunningly huge mansion in the Grove where they had the Live Golf Tour this year. I mean, just incredible. They have like a golf bay simulator in their basement, like just incredible. So like he and his nephews look like they're straight out of a country club. So that's him. And so because of that, after I take a carbonated beverage, I get really close to the microphone and I just let one go. And he gets so pissed. And he's just like, why? What is wrong with you? Why do you have to do this? If I ever have to tell him I have to get up to go to the bathroom, he gets so upset. He's like, why do you have to tell me? And the girls, Allie and Riley, just laugh because they're not offended at all. Like, they're, millennials. They don't give a crap about, but he's so, and they're normal people.
Right.
He's so prim and proper that he just, cannot handle it. And so I kind of mess with him a little bit in that regard, but we are very different. People call us the odd couple.
Yes.
We're different in every way. We're different in the way we act. We're different in our beliefs in politics. We're different in everything. I mean, pretty much, we have some similarities. We like football. We like Broadway. That's it. I mean, that's kind of where the line draws. But we get along great. When I saw him a couple weeks ago, it's like seeing one of your best friends. So it is a unique blend, though, of the two of us.
It's a great show. And listen, I've been doing it a long time, and I have a tendency to change channels when I lose interest. But you guys, you keep me enthralled, enthused. Good. And it's 9 to 12 Eastern, by the way, full ride for those listening who haven't dialed in on the college sports channel on SiriusXM. Hey, I wanted to ask you about a couple of things, and I love your show because you always bring up things, and I'm like, really? I didn't know that. Yeah. And I think it was yesterday you bring up Jackson Dart, the quarterback at Ole Miss, his NIL deal. He has private jet access, which I don't know why I'm astonished anymore, but that really surprised me. Yeah. And Shedeur Sanders, Deion's kid, who's an outstanding quarterback, he attended class in person at Colorado for the first time in April. He'd been there like a year.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, this is amazing stuff. It's the age we live in, but those two instances right there are crazy.
It is. Shedeur, it was for cameras, right? He went to class for the cameras. So the kid's had legitimately no college experience. He has not been, he's gone to class in theory online, and in theory he's doing his own work, but who knows? I do online class right now for Alabama, and everything I do is 100% authentic, of course, because I want my degree. I want it to be real. But could I cheat? 100%. I mean, who the hell would know? I'm sitting in Nashville. I could hire somebody to do it if I wanted to. So I'm sure that could happen for some football player that doesn't really care about the education side. I care about the reason I went to get more education was because I wanted to better myself. But there's some kids that just care about football. I would not be shocked if Shedeur fell into that camp. So that was weird. It was for a documentary. He probably has no idea where any of the buildings are. Probably has no idea how to get to the student quad, how to get to the university center, admissions office. Probably no clue. He knows football facilities, and that's it. And, he and his dad and his brothers kind of go back and forth. So that one's kind of wild. The private jet thing, that kind of blew me away, too.
Yes.
God bless him. I mean, and I know we have – and here's the thing, man. There's rich people, and, they're all Rick's Country Club friends, but there's all these guys with resources, and these dudes, they care about their school, and they're like, hey, I got a jet. I'll put it in the deal. You can use it. I got a pilot. I got to, I care about my team. I want to win. I think Jackson Dart can help us do that. That's where we're at in the world because there's no guidelines at all. There's no restrictions. The NCAA screwed the entire thing up by never giving the kids a piece of the pie. I don't think we would have had the Alston case be as drastically changing as it was if they would have been out in front of this. But they fought it. Double, triple, quadruple down on amateurism, and it got us where we're at, which is there's no restrictions at all. So a private jet, I mean, golly, imagine in the past. I mean, think about what happened to SMU.
Yeah.
And the 1980s, and that was over, like a Trans Am, let alone a freaking jet. But that's where we're at now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And it was interesting because you guys spent a lot of time at the various media days, and Mac Brown was on a show the other day, and he mentioned he was at a coach's clinic. Yeah, he was at a Nike's coach's clinic, and the Nike guy stood up and said, "This is the greatest age of college football in history." He's like, well, tell us why.
Yeah.
And obviously, the playoffs, players are getting paid, ratings are higher than they've ever been, stadiums are being, are selling out. He said, well, there's some things that need to be worked out, But I mean, Chris, I guess you can't take it that positive side, right? I mean, there are some good positives.
But I think for people like us, so if you've loved college football for a certain amount of time, if you're a young person, you probably don't think anything about it. This is going to be your normal. It's
Right.
you didn't grow up with college football feeling a certain way. I grew up in the 90s where college football had a feel. When
Sure.
the Rose Bowl had a feel to it, New Year's Day had a feel to it. And we changed little nuances, like we went from human polls to a BCS computer system to a 4-team playoff, and those moves seemed drastic. And then all of a sudden, we had this move with Alston in 2021, where the Supreme Court spoke unanimously against the NCAA's practices, and that was the day everything changed. They had to change their model or lack thereof, because they were essentially stripped down to the core of what they could do, and they've tried to enforce some of the rules in the last couple of years, and they just get crushed by either attorney generals or a courtroom or a lawyer or
Right.
somebody. I mean,
Right.
they have no winning proposition now that they got their butts kicked in that case. So that's why we're here. They could have avoided this. They could have been out in front of it. They could have been in a situation where they were giving a piece of the pie to the kids, where they made total cost of attendance truly something that shared some of the revenue. They did not do that. And so that's got us where we're at. But you could say this is long overdue.
Yeah.
And what we're growing, I call it, college football's version of puberty. If you remember when you were younger, it was awkward. It was your voice changed. You got hair places that you didn't have hair before, and pimples started to pop up, and it was kind of a weird transition for all of us. That's where I think we're at. We kind of hit this plateau in our world, where the economics of it, the law caused us to reverse the way we do business. But at the end of the day, we have a 12-team playoff. I think we're going to have the schools pay the kids directly. I don't know if collectives will go away anytime soon. I doubt it. I think they're kind of here to stay, at least in the short term. But at the end of, when it's all said and done, it's appropriate for the money that's coming in. And I think that as long as the popularity doesn't subside, as long as people don't say, well, this isn't college football, and everybody still is invested, then everybody wins, because the kids have been getting screwed. And we have a house situation, which has led to that case in court, which has led to a whole nother, the settlement, which we've been discussing, and what that's going to mean for scholarships and payment and schools involvement and all that. So there's layers to it. It's a growing pain. We're getting little pimples on our face, and our voice is changing. But when it's all settled, it might actually make sense and look like the other sports we love in this country that are professional, that are actually set up in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I wanted to ask you this. This is, and I'm curious, and we're proud of you from going to Alabama, by the way. We have a large faction of people from the University of Alabama,
Sweet.
so they're going to love you for that. I get up early this morning, and I'm covering Olympic golf, right, for CBS HQ, the digital thing. And NBC is just pumping these ads, and it just caught me pumping the ads. Big Ten Saturday night, right? And we know what they do with NFL on Sunday night. And obviously the SEC took all their chips and took it to the ESPN basket. But I'm thinking the Big Ten now has the NBC Saturday night. They're going to have CBS, the old SEC slot, 3:30 Saturday afternoons with Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson. And I'm probably the same music that they ran for the SEC.
I would assume so.
And Fox is going to have the first game at noon Eastern, 11 Central, which will either be Big Ten. I think they have the first choice of the Big Ten, maybe a Big 12 game.
Yeah.
Did the Big Ten get the better TV package? I know it's big money both sides there, Chris, but I'm thinking maybe the Big Ten, maybe they out-negotiated the SEC with this whole deal when all's said and done.
Well, I find that CBS spot to be important. I just, and CBS might not be the highest bidder, but I just think that visibility and that time slot as college football fans with that music and that delivery, we're kind of attuned to that being appointment television, and I'm curious if that carries over. My gut is it will. I think we all kind of love it and look forward to CBS's coverage of college football. NBC, like you said, Saturday nights, well positioned. I think NBC does a really good job
Yeah, they
with
do.
college football. They did a great job with Notre Dame for forever. I've been watching all their coverage of the Olympics. I think it's been top notch. I think Maria Taylor is outstanding. I hope she's heavily involved with all.
She's a star. She's a star.
Yeah, all the stuff they do. I think Rebecca Lowe is terrific too, and Rebecca does. I'm a huge Premier League fan, so I'm. Rebecca more than anything is somebody whose work I consume, and she's been a part of the Olympics, and she's been off the charts with her versatility and her knowledge of everything. So NBC's great. I think they're well positioned. I think they put together a good product. I think it looks clean. One of my arguments with Fox, I don't really love their delivery of college football. I think their NFL delivery is a lot better. And it's just visual. There's just something about it that doesn't feel right to me. I think NBC looks really clean and big time, and but the Big Ten's got a lot of ways to watch it, and I think that's really important. Now, with that said, I always still think that when you're a part of ESPN ABC, it's still the biggest. It's still it's the easiest to find. It's the one that we're just kind of trained as robots, as Americans, to
Right.
kind of look at first. So I think they're okay, but you got to give the Big Ten credit. They had versatility in this deal, and I think the deal gives them a lot of not only money, but it gives interesting delivery to their product, especially that CBS slot.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I just, and they bombarded me with those spots this morning, and it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. Yes, right. The big Saturday
I love that
night
you're
deal.
doing the Olympic golf. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's fun. You got to get up early, but
Yeah. What time do they tee off? What time is the first?
about 2 a.m. 2 a.m.
So you're
yeah.
getting up at 1?
Yeah. I mean, I might have missed
Okay.
the first tee shot, but
Okay. Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, but it's all good. It's
Yeah.
fun. Same guys too. It's funny when you watch an Olympic golf tournament, which doesn't happen very often. It's the same as a PGA tournament,
Sure.
with a few
Yeah.
live guys thrown in. Hey, what about Matt Rule? Great guy, not great coach in the NFL, but nevertheless back at Nebraska. And of course, his big statement last week: the Big Ten is the NFL of college football. That drew some ire from SEC fans. There, Chris. What do you think?
I disagree with him. I think the SEC
Me too.
is the college or is the NFL of college football.
Yeah.
I get where Rule's coming from.
Sure.
He's never spent a lot of time in this league. He's been in the NFL. Nebraska certainly has every bell, every whistle. They've got all the infrastructure. Their geographical place in the world isn't great, but everything else is top notch. So it's big time football. It's certainly bigger than Baylor. It's bigger than Temple. It's bigger than anywhere he's ever been. So from that regard, I get where he's coming from. But if he spent 10 minutes in the SEC, if he spent 10 minutes at Alabama, 10 minutes in Georgia, he would see that's really the NFL. It is run in a really elite level. I think the championships over the years suggested. I get the Big Ten's got the belt right now, but it's one belt in how many years?
Yeah,
and the
good point.
SEC's dominated, just about every single year. So it's another level of talent, another level of expectation, another level of hot seat. And the results, the old saying, the proof's in the pudding. So I love Matt, call him a friend, but he just hasn't lived it, so he doesn't know.
Yeah, I know. Well said. Boy, in fact, I hear people applauding right now who are listening to the show. What about Ohio State, Georgia? They're 1-1A without question going into the season? They got
I don't know.
right?
I think Georgia's won. I
Okay.
think they're in a good position. Their quarterback gets a lot of help around them. Their defense looks good. I thought they were the best team in college football a year ago. I think with the experience that they bring back, they're only going to be better. That's a good-looking football team. They got beat by Alabama in the SEC title game. Alabama was hot at the end of the year. Bama played Michigan really good. Michigan ends up winning the title. If Georgia's in the playoff, do I think they win it all? I do. I mean,
Probably.
that was my guess, but they didn't get in, right? So Texas was in, and Michigan got in, and Washington and Alabama. So that wouldn't be the case this year. We would have a Georgia with a case to make and potentially win that title, but that wasn't the case. But I thought they were damn good. I think they're loaded. I'm not as sure about Ohio State. I think Ohio State's great everywhere, but I'm not so sold that they're great at quarterback. I mean, Will Howard was the starting quarterback for Kansas State. Is he really an upgrade over Kyle McCord? I don't know. I think Georgia might be a step above. I mean, Rick thinks Oregon's better than Ohio State. And they got Dylan Gabriel now at quarterback. So I like Ohio State. They've added a lot and people celebrate them for what they added in the transfer portal. I totally get it. I mean, a big-time running back from Ole Miss, some big pieces on defense they needed. They addressed a lot of problems. In theory, Will Howard, is experienced and good, but is he great? I don't know. Are they better than Michigan? Probably. Are they better than Penn State? Probably. Are they better than Oregon? I don't know that yet.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. That's for sure. Hey, is Kirby, he took a little heat. I mean, not really at SEC Media Days, but some articles have been written about the arrests at Georgia. I mean, I guess 29 kids have been arrested. Yeah. Some of them pretty serious since he's taken the job. Is that something we ought to be paying more attention to, Chris, or is it just, I mean, I don't want to say it's just the way it is, because we're talking about some pretty serious issues. But
it's something we have paid attention to,
yeah.
But nothing happens. So,
right.
Should we be paying attention to it? I think so. We had a situation where the wide receiver where there was a domestic issue.
Yes.
We've had countless amounts of speeding and speed racing and reckless driving. And the fact of the matter is, after the national championship celebration, one of the key players on that team died. As did a member of the staff. They are no longer on this earth. They can't have kids. They can't have a family. They can't pursue their dreams, their careers. None of that because of stupidity. And not just on their behalf, but on the behalf of everybody that was there that night as well and made that decision. They went, they had alcohol, then they got behind the car and they drove over 100 miles per hour, and the unspeakable happened.
Yes.
And there's families right now without their loved ones, and there's teammates without their loved ones, and yet it continues to happen. Now, nobody's died in the aftermath, but, I mean, to me, it's like you keep putting yourself in these situations, eventually something tragic is bound to happen again. And we've seen it it's every couple of months. So we always say Georgia's got a problem. They got a culture problem. Yet on the field, they win. And on Saturdays, they're dominant. And as long as they're dominant, will anything happen to Kirby? Probably not.
No.
So how does it change? I don't know. I don't know, because we've already had worst case scenario and nothing changed.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things that was floating out there a little bit during media days.
Yeah.
And then as we talked about football,
scared.
Just pushed
everybody's
aside.
Scared to ask him about it.
Yeah, and he addresses it, in his opening comments. But I don't know. I just think it's a story that we shouldn't forget about.
I agree. I mean, it's a problem.
Yeah,
and quite frankly, it's dangerous for the kids and for everybody in the community.
Yeah,
I don't want to be driving around late in Athens. I'll tell you that, because I'm serious. These kids are wild.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And they're going crazy speeds down these roads. Yeah,
it's nuts. But I wanted to get your opinion. I know you guys have talked about it on the show. Hey, getting back to some games before I let you go. And I'm looking, obviously, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Dublin, and I know you'd love to be there. You talked about that. That'd be a great trip. Clemson, Georgia. Speaking of Georgia, that'll be a nice one. August 31st, and you guys have talked about this. Miami at Florida in Gainesville. I think this is a huge first game, and Miami right now is a favorite, 2.5 points. But not only for Billy Napier, but Mario Cristobal. This is an important season for him. Don't you think that's I don't want to say an underrated game. It's Miami, Florida, but at the same time, I'm looking at these games: Notre Dame, Texas A&M, LSU, USC. That Miami, Florida game, that's kind of important in the opening week of the season for them.
I think it's an incredible, meaningful game. I think for Miami, this is a program. I don't know if Cristobal is going to lose his job, because I think him and Radakovich are kind of linked into building this thing. It's only been a couple of years, but with that said, this is the big quarterback they brought in. Cristobal's been widely criticized for blowing the Georgia Tech game last year. I mean, this is a guy that kind of needs that step. He left Oregon to go to Miami. It looked a little risky. He did it because they've made a recommitment to football. They want to make the U great again. Cristobal last week at Media Days told me all the things they've done to infuse life and resource into the program, and it all sounded great. But now they've got to do it, and they've got a quarterback that comes from Washington State who's big time, and Cam Ward. So he's got to deliver. And weirdly, there's been a weird buzz about Florida. Even though I think their schedule is brutal. I mean, Graham Mertz, all of a sudden, people are like, well, he's better than you think. He's better.
Good player.
I don't know if he is. And I think that first game is going to be a big indicator of it. But huge measuring stick game for both programs. Massive.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And I've kept you way too long. For our listeners, again, if you don't listen to Chris and Rick and Allie on Full Ride, 9 to 12 Eastern, 8 to 11 Central, every day, Monday through Friday. You guys are great, Chris, and I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy doing a million things, but thanks for coming on, my friend. I mean, you're awesome.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. Time for a nap, and then got Mad Dog Radio later today. So.
Oh, you're doing Mad Dog today?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
I'm hosting tonight. Yeah. So
okay. Oh my goodness. So you got a
it'll
little.
be fun. Yeah,
well,
by myself for 3 hours.